Welcome to Nomadic Diaries. My name is Doreen Cumberford, the host, and I'm joined today by Megan Norton-Newbanks. Say hi.
Hi, Doreen.
Hi, Megan. Hi, everyone. It is our privilege to present to you today Camie Fenton. Now, I met Camie in San Miguel de Allende. In fact, she probably has a lot to do with the fact that I am here today. Camie has been a full-time resident of San Miguel for 25 years. She has served as the publisher of the Atención newspaper, which is, well, the Atención News, excuse me, and that supports the local public libraries' efforts and is a wonderful source of cultural information in our community. She also publishes the San Miguel Walking and Shopping Guide. For 15 years she's done that. She's been the past president of the Festival de Música de Cámara for 6 years. And now she has entered into even another phase of her very creative life in the area of real estate. So she describes herself as being deeply connected to San Miguel, and I believe that San Miguel is deeply connected to you, Camie. Welcome today to Nomadic Diaries.
Thank you, Doreen and Megan. Good to be with you.
Wonderful. Wonderful to have you, Camie. And in this series, we are really exploring belonging and what that means. And I am so fascinated to hear more about your story, as well as I'm sure the listeners will, to your connection to San Miguel and what brought you there. We'll start there. What brought you to this beautiful city?
Well, San Miguel de Allende, the National World Heritage City, was really became for North Americans in the 40s and 50s when the GI Bill was implemented through the Instituto Allende. And my uncle, my beloved Uncle Don, my dad's brother, came down to study at the Instituto Allende, and he met the beautiful Gloria Gutierrez Soto right the first day, and they married. So I always had a beautiful connection to a really, truly historic family in San Miguel that came 450 years ago plus, because the Via Real of Spain invited them to be here. So I had cousins here, my uncle here, my aunt. They opened a hotel that was quite famous in the 70s. And I came down to go to the Instituto Allende myself, as I was out of high school and had always loved art. So there I found myself in 1974. And San Miguel, when I went back and began my life and had my advertising agency, was always beckoning me to come back. I visited and eventually decided to make the jump and live here full time. And that might have been easier for me than others because I did have family structure here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's wonderful. When you say you would come there, from where? Where were you in the world?
Well, I was born and raised in Seattle, Washington.
Mm.
So completely, really a new city. If you look at the face of cities in the United States, it was a new city. And the antiquity, and what am I trying to say? And you know what I'm trying to say. Antiquity,
Yeah.
wrong word, of San Miguel fascinated me because we're living in 16th and 17th century, sometimes Rococo architecture here. And it does have its awards for being an architecturally beautiful city. It was the fascination of the small cobblestone streets and the fact that you could get from one side of town to the other down beautiful facades and stop in and hear music and have cups of tea and meet people on the street that fascinated me when I was in my early girlhood, 19 and 20, to the point when I finally moved back, as it continues to do today.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that you have chosen to make a home in a place where, yes, you do have the familial ties, and also the cultural, and you've become a full-time resident. And I'm curious then, what has been some of the changes that you have seen over the past 25 years that has contributed to your sense of belonging to this place?
Well, I think the changes always come from within. The place may change architecturally, but I mean, the belonging comes from our connectivity to what we do, to go across the street to the little bodega store to pick up eggs and cheese, so to speak, and to know that family, as well as really important here to the culture is those who come love to join charities and NGOs in their area of interest. My dad was a biologist, and I was always out on rivers in the Pacific Northwest. So when I came, I decided to dedicate myself to a project called Save the Rio Laja, which means the Laja River running through our watershed. And that was a great connector. I still have friends. We've reconnected from 25 years ago from my jumping into that. And I'm going to go back to 1 minute. How does the community change? One of the things that I've seen is I have seen the rise of the middle class in Mexico through easier bank loans for people who work to buy cars. I see a more crowded city because of that, but I also see lots of families on vacation here enjoying their patrimony. I don't see other changes outside of the growth outside of the city center. Our city center has become more beautified, perhaps more sophisticated, beautiful restaurants and beautiful shops.
Mm-hmm. I would love to visit.
Yeah. I'd love you to visit, but we can still go down right in the middle of the city to the local fresh market, which is, I think, a block wide and a block deep, all the way through, with all the fresh fruits, all the little old gals who pick the nopale leaves and sit and sell all the spices and the herbs. It's really interesting because that is right in the middle of the city. You don't have to go to our beautiful new store here called City Market. You can experience Mexico as it was at the turn of the century by just going into that market.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Doreen, you mentioned part of the reason why perhaps you made a decision to move has a connection to Camie. Would you explore and share a little bit more of that?
Well, the first time I ever met Camie was, I think we had a serendipitous meeting at the Tiengas, which is a huge market that happens on a Tuesday. And again, a smaller version I've heard on a Sunday, which I haven't attended. And she was there, and I think that's where we met, wasn't it? And she was so spontaneous and welcoming, and immediately we were with another couple, and immediately she issued a welcome. She issued an invitation for us to go out and visit her house. She had a bus come, and we went to get the bus, all piled in the bus, and went out to Camie's house. And I was fascinated by the fact that someone that you would just trip over in a market would issue a warm invitation to go to their house. And I thought, wow, if this is indicative of the community spirit here, I want to be a part of that.
Isn't that amazing? That's what happened. We liked you and John and your friends, and we were having a party. That's one of my parts of my history. I had already moved from living in Centro Historico for about 17 years out to the countryside, which is really 10 minutes by highway, to a property that has an acre and lots of mesquite trees and pines, and it's really beautiful. But we just grabbed that Doreen with those bright blue eyes and said, "What are you doing here?" And started a conversation. Doreen, have you found that you've been invited around since, and it's been a surprising thing.
Yes, yes, to the extent that now I try and keep a low profile.
I bet.
Because it has become, it is such a social city. I think that that is one of the reasons that so many people in our, let's say, third chapter of life feel welcome here because it has more of a sense of the US, I think. Well, I didn't live in the US before the 80s. But I'm imagining of what it was like back in the 50s and the 60s, in that there's a sense of openness, serendipity, spontaneity, and welcome. Would you
I
agree with
agree.
that?
I really agree with that. And for no purpose, for no gain. Do you know what I
Yes,
mean?
yes.
People aren't asking you to do something because they want or need something from you. It's just the moment and where you are. Whether I have to give a quick story. I sold a house in a desirable part of San Miguel a month ago. Some folks who I met in the same way as you, Doreen, on the street, we became friends, moved to San Miguel. They went out to the Rain Dog Cafe to hear music on a Sunday night. They were sitting next to a woman who was by herself. And they started talking, and the woman said, I'd like to buy a house in San Miguel. And they said, oh, there's a great one for sale across the street from us. So she called me the next day and
Wow.
bought the house. I mean, because they were out enjoying music together, just talking about
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
You know, it's easy to be philosophical here for some reason.
Yes, that's true. And there's a lack of the transactional aspect that we are faced with when we're in other countries, or specifically the US. I find very transactional. You know, you do this and I'll do that kind of thing. And that is missing here, Megan. It's very much more juntas, or I find it's very much more like Scotland. And it's like, we're all in this together. We're all going to wear kilts and play the bagpipes or whatever it is we do. But whatever we do, we are in this together, in this life together. Would you agree with that, Camie?
Yeah, I sure would. I often say it's kind of absent of socioeconomic ladders and
Oh,
divisions, that you are who you are, people are interested in you, and you're invited, you just get to go. And I'm thinking of, I go to the Jardine every now and then when I have a guest in town, and I hire the mariachis to play Mariachi Loco, which is a
yeah.
song in which they dance and swivel their hips. And I always bring all the women because it's a song for women. Oh, you can hear our thunderstorm here this afternoon.
Yes.
I bring the women and we all dance, all the local ladies, the gringa ladies. It's just a joyful thing. It's that moment of spontaneity and connection that happens so frequently.
Mm. Mm. Camie, what I understand is you have a very pivotal role in creating community with how you give voice to people in the newspaper, and the storytelling that you do in this very tangible way. And can you speak more about your role in that, and how does it really showcase a place's identity in that newspaper?
Well, look, it's a 2-year-old enterprise, and my writers are volunteers, and a lot of us are in our third age, and a lot of them have a deep love and passion for a subject in particular, as Doreen does. And many of them are writers. So what happens with this newspaper is we don't get together and say, you have to write about this and you have to write about that. It evolves in a tight format because it is newsprint. We can't go on and on. And it is supported by advertisers because it's a free publication. In fact, it's online, and Doreen will at some point help me remember what our website is. But people can read those stories. And how does that help? Well, look, we're still an English language newspaper, so we're really talking to an audience of about 20,000 people. Isn't that about right, Doreen? I think that the current
Yes.
census is about 20,000 full time, not part time. North American or European residents who speak English. So that is part of the storytelling for them about the community that's around them, the tequila burro that they see on the streets with his hat and his pants, about the man who sells hats, right to who's directing the new opera in town right now. So it's going from the streets to, let's say, the best seats in the house.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's been a really nice project. We started with about 4 main writers, and we're up to 20, 25, including Doreen. And we're kind of a non-corporate entity, and we all enjoy doing this and watching one another's talent grow, as a matter of fact, at doing it.
That's incredible. Yeah, I love that you're an integral part of the voice of the city as well. This is a question I'm not sure I have it fully formed, but we'll see how it comes out. It's what is then the relationship between community members and families of generations who have lived there for a long time and migrant and North American people coming to live in the city? What does that interaction and transition look like from your
Boy,
perspective?
that's a really big question. You know what? We are welcomed in the city, and we may be on a board really serving on a charity of which there are probably 50 to 60 fully functioning NGOs with relationships to also charitable giving for your dollar in the US. You'll find the families that go back like mine did 450 years, their children are on those boards, because that's what keeps the city moving along, taking care of what it needs to, whether it's Feed the Hungry for Children, or healthcare through Pro Niños, or Amigos de Animales for spaying or adopting out dogs. These are the problems are being addressed because that's the traditional way to do it here. And we're all together in the same place frequently, taking lunch or having a cup of tea or even a margarita. So I don't find that I don't find that we have a huge division when we're out for entertainment or when we're on boards. I think the difference is always how well can you speak Spanish to keep up with those families, with that conversation. That's part of being invited, is being able to converse.
Yes.
Yes, it is. But there is a definite, I would say there's a definite blending that I have not seen in every expat community I've lived in. Now, Megan has lived in, I don't know how many, 9, 10, 12 countries. She was the daughter of a diplomat, Camie. And so she
What
has...
a privilege.
Yes.
Yes, what a privilege and what a challenge.
I can imagine.
And so I have really experienced that there is, for the most part, a lack of that friction. You know, there's a little bit of tension between every culture when you are sitting cross-culturally from someone, and that's natural. We all three of us are familiar with that sort of feeling of tension. So there's difference. But here, I don't find it as jagged or as obvious as in many other places that I have lived. Would you agree with that? Well, Camie, do you get that sense that it's like that?
No, well, I get the sense that we all acknowledge one another with affection. I think probably one of the bigger divides, crazy to say, is age, but I get rid of that by going out dancing and going with a younger set every now and then, trying to pop into the so-called disco after 11 or midnight, and they love it. They're so accepting. They say, oh my God, there's a couple old North Americans. Let's let them have the dance floor. Let's dance with them.
Yeah, that's what I wrote about in this month's publication, was the the great enthusiasm with which John and I were met when we were at a concert in the Jardín in the center of town with the Mexican jazz band, and we had a choir of 20 people singing around us. And so when John got up and danced with one of the Mexican ladies, oh, they loved that. They thought that was fabulous. But when he danced with me, and it was only like a few moments because I was a little embarrassed by the attention, but they were cheering and they were
No,
celebrating.
I don't think you should ever be embarrassed by the attention. I think that helps say that we're experiencing
Yes,
joy,
it does.
and
It does.
that
Yes.
they love the fact, because they know people come here for a vacation from all across Mexico. They know what a special place it is. It's in their hearts to have a good time. Those who live here are proud of their heritage here, and they love to see other people expressing that.
Yes, they really do. They really have the art of celebration down to masterful, I would say.
Well,
Master.
I love it when I'm walking through the Jardine. Yesterday, I was out on business about 3, and everybody was having ice cream cones in the shade. And it's not hot here right now, by the way, at 70 in a thunderstorm. But
Yeah.
I was walking through, and there was obviously a group of people from out of town, and they had hired the mariachis, and they were all singing. They have these songs that are something we don't have in North America, unless it would be Yankee Doodle Dandy or My Country 'Tis of Thee, really. Songs that are endemic and that are inherited from your family. And you can sing them. You sing them with the mariachis. It's
Yeah.
so joyful, isn't it?
It is. It is joyful. And when we had that choir incident, they were so enthusiastic about the fact that they could recall the words from some of these songs, which I think were as old as 20, 30, or even 40 years ago. It was like, for them, it was like their version of the Beatles.
Yeah,
Mm.
I go to Johnny's piano bar sometimes, and he sings the Great American Songbook, and all of his stop by musicians can do the Great American Songbook. And the amount of Mexican population there that knows I left my heart in San Francisco, well, that's pretty obvious. But the Great American Songbook, they come in and sing. It's fun. It's a cross cultural happening.
I love that.
There's a little plug for Johnny's piano bar, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. Both of you are talking about your town, your place, and I love that because that's such a celebratory way of showcasing your belonging. And I'm wondering, Camie, you've lived there now over 25 years. Is that right?
That's right. Full time.
Mhm.
I left my
Yeah.
advertising agency and came here. And I was kind of retired for a couple years, well, maybe more, maybe a decade. And I did garden club, book club, gourmet club, all those kind of things to meet people. And of course, the charities. That was really fun. But then I missed collaboration. And that's when I started doing a book called Colors with photographers, and the Walking and Shopping Guide, which is a nice guidebook for the city, and becoming director of the Chamber Music Festival. That put me back into a position of more responsibility than just being retired. And it was time to do that. Also, my Spanish had improved to the point where I could navigate um, having business licenses, doing meetings with Bellas Artes in Spanish. Well, they put up with me.
Yeah, that is challenging, and that is the biggest barrier I find is my slow acquisition of this language. However, um, it's a wonderful experience anyway because many of the people I've met here have some modicum of English, and somehow we manage.
Oh,
And
I don't, excuse me, I don't think that anyone would need to speak Spanish to be
no,
at home
no,
in a lot of Mexico, but of course, especially this town, which has had its history of North American population,
yeah,
and very, very patient.
Mm. Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So may I ask then, being there 25 years plus, do you find that people ask you where are you from though? Like, is that still, even though you are from now this
Oh,
land?
sure. People, when you meet people, you frequently say, "Where are you from?" It's a conversation opener. My partner's from Chicago, and you'd be surprised how many people you meet on the street from Chicago. You know what I mean? People like to share that. Not so much the Mexican population doesn't really ask me where I'm from, but the North American wants to know.
And how do you feel about that personally now that, yes, Seattle is where you
Oh,
grew up, but now
sure.
this city has shaped
I think
you?
it helps people navigate something about, well, we all have ideas about what regionality means. Even though if we come from the U.S., we have that basic background and inheritance, a kind of a can-do attitude. But I don't find it a problem. I think it helps them identify, oh, she's not a New York girl, she's a Seattle girl. There must be a difference.
Mm, mm. Doreen, what would you comment on that with how you respond to where you're from in this city?
We've been discussing this a little bit, Camie. Is this a trick question, Megan? My identity is very, very tied up to the idea that I have been for this in this year, 50 years living outside of my native country. And I think for people who have not had the experience of juggling cultures, languages, traditions, and expectations cross-culturally for decades. The question does not have the fangs to it for Camie, I think that it might have for me. And you and I have talked about this, Megan. And so because of my ouch factor, which I think is very common with other internationals who live here, I have different answers. Like, so tell me, what would you like to know? Would you like to know where I was born? Because sometimes they pick up I have a strange accent sometimes. And so they might say, they might be curious about, was I born, where was I born? Or where did I last move from? Or where did I pick up my American accent? So it can mean many, many things. And I think to most people who've lived in North America and then lived here, it doesn't have the same ouch factor or the same, it's not loaded. We had a conversation yesterday, Camie, with the woman who wrote the Third Culture Kid book, Ruth Van Reken, and we had this conversation about how can we answer that question with grace and build community by creating a welcoming atmosphere, no matter who's asking it.
Well, there you go. We all have such different experiences in life, huh?
We sure do, don't we?
Yeah.
So, what advice do you commonly find yourself giving to other expats to when people move here? I bet that since you're in real estate, you're meeting a lot of new people. You have a deep sense of well-being and connection with this community and this place. I'm really curious as to what you find yourself constantly telling other people about moving here and about how to move through this across this intercultural divide that some people feel and experience, so that they can go beyond being an observer. Do you find yourself saying similar things frequently?
I tell them to smile. I tell them to tell the people on the streets their babies are beautiful.
Ah,
I
that's lovely.
I Family is the most important thing here. I tell them to um, take a deep breath, that we're not living with as much time awareness, with as much time sensitivity as we do, especially in North America, and to talk to people. If they're at the store, say hello. If you're checking out, tell somebody they look nice. I mean, it's the same kindnesses that you would do anywhere else, but it creates a connectivity. I'm going to go back to a bad day, 9/11. When I came out of my house on the narrow cobblestone street and walked down the road the next day, there were bodegas, which are the little stores, little doorway, family owned stores. Every store I went by, those people came out and hugged me and they said, "We're sorry." And that just touched my heart. I just didn't know that I was known and that I was loved like that. And I think that's an example of how it is here.
Mm. I love that. I love what you just said, being known and loved. And I want to harken back to what Doreen said about how with our highly mobile backgrounds, sometimes I think we have a fear and almost a resistance to open ourselves up, to be vulnerable to place, with a fear that maybe we won't be known and loved. And I think it's such an encouragement to have you on here, Camie, because we have a lot of third culture kids and expats who listen to Doreen's podcast, Nomadic Diaries. And I think what you're sharing so deeply and encouragingly is get involved, and it takes time. What you just said about like learning the language and the cultural norms, I think that's golden, and I feel very encouraged myself with what you're saying.
Well, I'm telling you, if you can't laugh at yourself, probably shouldn't come, because it really does take some humility
Yes.
to find yourself not being the expert, not being the one who knows everything, but actually as an adult needing to ask for help sometimes in a different culture. And so humbleness and humor are two necessary elements. I do want to say about third, you're talking about children growing up in a different culture. I had my step granddaughter when she was 14 and 15 come and live with me full time here, and she went to Victoria's school, which is English taught, but the grades are mixed. And she came out smarter and better. And I'm telling you, uh, uh, I think a better young person from having the experience of being with kids from across the United States and then making friends from all of these young teenage Mexican connections that she had. And
So
it gave me something. It gave me kind of like being grandmother and being able to go to school events with her and see the younger families and see how well that they were integrating and using the systems here of ballet, jazz singing, hip hop dancing, horse riding, tennis, all the things that are just easy to access.
Mm. Well, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for this conversation, Camie. We've got a couple of questions that I just would like to ask as a little lightning round in closing. Describe home for us in 3 words, please, if you wouldn't mind.
Sleeping peacefully.
Lovely. And do you have any mistakes? Have you ever had a cross-cultural mistake that taught you something here specifically in San Miguel?
Hmm. Well, I went to a wedding not realizing how dressed up the women get. I mean, I didn't understand the femininity of the culture.
Yes.
I have sometimes perhaps passed a driver who's male in my car, and sometimes that's not appreciated.
Yes. Interesting. Interesting. And so, in a couple of sentences, can you tell us how you've grown personally from living abroad or living in San Miguel specifically, in this beautiful haven that we call home?
Well, you can come out of your narrow definition of self, okay? Should I have ever been the director of a music festival? No, but I did it and did it well because there were so many to help me. You can take the talents and skills that you have And you can parlay those. I mean, I have my own art studio and my own art press. I've had shows. I've been in writing groups. My manuscript is in the drawer. But there's time to pursue all of the what ifs that you might not be able to do when you peg yourself in to the structure of a society that has expectations of you for your time, for your age, for your sex. I don't find that here. And I am very surprised that I'm, quote, a newspaper publisher for a small city newspaper. That wasn't in my wildest dream, but these things happen organically because of the connectivity of the place and people.
Yes, they do. Well, thank you for spending time with us today. We really appreciate it. Anything
Well,
in
Megan
closing?
and Doreen, I appreciate it. And I thank you. So shall I say hasta la vista?
Sí.
All right. Hasta la vista.
Muchas
Bye-bye.
gracias. Bye-bye.
Camie, thank you.